So we're going to review for the Unit 8 test, and we want to write these numbers in the scientific notation. There's a decimal right here. We want to count how many spaces it takes to get us right in front of the first number. So we start off by writing 4.72, and we stop writing as soon as we have zeros left, and times 10 because we're in a base 10 system. And the exponent is how many numbers it would take to get there. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So this would be 4.72 times 10 to the 8th power. The next one, we're going to take the decimal and move it to the right, which means we're going to have a negative exponent. And we write we write the digits down, so 7.21, one number, and then the decimal, times 10. And then the exponent is going to be how many numbers it takes to move it to in front of the first non-zero number. So it would be 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So this would be 7.21 times 10 to the negative 4th power. So here we're going to multiply and write our answer in scientific notation, which is important. So 2.25 times 5 is 11.25. And 10 to the 8th times 10 to the 7th, we add the exponents. 8 plus 7 is 15. But this is not scientific notation. For scientific notation, we need one number, one digit, and then the exponent. So we move the decimal over left one, so 1.125, and then we add 1 to the exponent and make it 16. The next question is similar. 5.2 times 13 is 67.6. And then for the exponents, 10 to the 14th times 10 to the 9th, we add the exponents, and 14 plus 9 is 23. And again, we want one number and then the one digit and then the decimal, so we have to move the decimal over left one, which means we add 1 to the exponent, so 6.76 times 10 to the 24th power. Next, we're going to divide. So 8 divided by 20 is 0.4, and 10 to the 5th divided by 10 to the 7th is 10 to the negative 2. When we divide, we subtract the exponents, and 5 minus 7 is a negative 2. So right now we have 0.4 times 10 to the negative 2. But we need one digit, a non-zero digit, and then the decimal, so we have to move the decimal over right one, and then we subtract 1 from the exponent. And negative 2 minus 1 is a negative 3. So our answer is going to be 4 times 10 to the negative 3rd power. And the next one, we're going to have 5.2 divided by 13. Interestingly enough, that's also 0.4. And then for the exponents, 10 to the 14th divided by 10 to the 9th. We subtract the exponents, and 14 minus 9 is 5. So we have 10 to the 5th power, which means we currently have 0.4 times 10 to the 5th power. And make sure when you're writing all of these in that use the multiplicative x and not the x on the keyboard. And we need one non-zero digit, so we have to write this in scientific notation by moving the decimal over 1 to the right, and then we subtract 1 from the exponent, and 5 minus 1 is 4. So our answer is going to be 4 times 10 to the 4th power. We want to find the distance between these points, and this is going to use the Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we need to find the distance between the x values. So the x's, the differences, is going to be 4 minus 2. Just remember, it doesn't matter which way you subtract it, but the answer is going to be non-negative at the end. So 4 minus 2 is 2. And then for the y's, the differences will be 10 minus 15, which is going to be negative 5, but it won't matter because we're going to square the numbers. So we're looking for the distance. You can put a and b as the x and y. So we're going to have 2 squared plus a negative 5 squared, and make sure that you put the negative 5 in parentheses, because when we square it, it needs to be a positive number for this. So 2 squared is 4, and negative 5 times negative 5 is a positive 29. So we have 4 plus 29 equals c squared. We add those together, we get 33 equals c squared. So Yeah, 5 squared, negative 5 times negative 5 is a positive 25. 4 plus 25, sorry, 4 plus 25 is 29. And then we take the square root. The opposite or inverse of square number is the square root, and that gives us about 5.38. And we want to round that to the nearest tenth, so that would be 5.4. Same idea, but we got to be careful because we have some negatives in there. So for the x's, the difference would be negative 3 minus 1, which is a negative 4. So we'll put the negative 4 in parentheses. The y's, we have 6 minus a negative 9. We have two negatives next to each other. That means we're going to add them. So 6 plus 9 is 15. Negative 4 squared, negative 4 times negative 4 is a positive 16. 15 times 15 is 225. 16 plus 225 is 241. And again, the opposite or inverse of square number is the square root. And that's going to give us about 15.52 for C. And rounding that to the nearest tenth, that's going to be 15.5. So we want to find the value of x if A is 3x, B is 2x plus 4, and C is 5x plus 6. Well, we do need to know that the sum of the interior angles of a triangle is 180 degrees. So we can set this up to say 3x plus 2x plus 4 plus 5x plus 6 equals 180. So now we can say that 3x plus 2x is 5x, plus another 5x is 10x. So we have a 10x, and a 4 and a positive 6 is a positive 10. So now it just becomes a relatively simple algebra problem. Subtract 10 on both sides, because we get rid of stuff that's on the same side of the letter but not touching it. And the opposite or inverse of adding 10 is subtracting 10. Now that gives us 10x equals 170. And then we would divide both sides by 10 because the opposite or inverse of multiplication is division. And that gives us x equals 17. Solving inequalities is almost like solving an equation. The only difference is we flip the inequality if we multiply and divide, and the negative was on the same side of the letter when we did that. So the first one, we get rid of the positive 2. The opposite or inverse is to subtract 2. That gives us 3x is less than 18. Then 3x means 3 times x, and the opposite or inverse of multiplication is division. So we divide both sides by 3, and that gives us x is less than 6. The next one, we get rid of the positive 3. It's on the same side of the letter but not touching it. Opposite or inverse is subtracting. So we have negative 4y is less than or equal to 10. Now we would divide both sides by negative 4. And it was a negative on the same side of the letter when we multiplied or divided. So we flip the inequality, and that's going to give us y is greater than or equal to negative 2.5. The last one, we would add 1 first. That gives us negative 2m is greater than 12, and then we would divide by negative 2. And since the negative was on the same side of the letter, when we multiplied or divided, we flipped the inequality. And our answer is m is less than negative 6. But do note, if it was something like 3x is greater than negative 12, that we divide both sides by 3, and the inequality is, the negative is not on the same side of the letter when we multiplied or divided, so we would not flip it in this one. So just be aware of that. We're going to change these decimals to fractions. We don't need to simplify, but we have the 0.78. There's 2 numbers in this pattern. The line means it's going over and over again, so that's how many 9s we put on the bottom. And we just write the numerator, it would just be 78. The next one, 0.9248, is repeating. There's going to be 4 numbers in that pattern, so that's how many 9s we put on the bottom. And the numerator, the top, will just be 9248. And the last one, 0.4, repeating. There's just 1 number in this pattern. So 1 9, and then a 4 goes on top. So the space above the fireplace mantle is 45 inches tall and 60 inches wide. You have the option of placing those options there of TVs. And TVs are measured by the diagonal going across. So this would be 45 inches and 60 inches. What we see there is a triangle. My poor drawing there, we should see a triangle, so we can use the Pythagorean theorem. So we'd have the 45 squared plus the 60 squared is going to be the diagonal squared. I'm just going to write D this time. 45 squared is 2025, and 60 squared is 3600. We add those up, and we get 5,625. And the last step is to take the square root, and that gives us 75. Now the problem is, and I would take 75 as the largest answer, but you also might consider the frame around it as well. So you may just want to say 68, and if you gave me either explanation, I would give you full credit. So if you have any kind of questions, please let me know.